Hi, once again, this is Paul O'Leary, the CTO of Quantivo. We get asked all the time, technically how we are different, what we do differently than potential competitors or other solutions that are out there, or more exactly, in many cases, we get asked, how is it that we actually do what we do? So we built a solution, a software as a service-based solution. We built it from the ground up to meet certain requirements for the type of analysis we wanted to be able to provide as a service. And we started with the requirement of really being able to do full ad hoc real analytics against big data with particularly hard queries, which by itself is a challenge, because what the real ad hoc tends to imply is that you're not losing data when you're making it queryable. You're not pre-aggregating and boiling data away just for the sake of performance, and we'll talk about what that means and how we do it. When you're architecting a software as a service solution, you have to be completely multi-tenant on the back end. What that means is that you're able to scale cost effectively as you add more customers, as queries get harder and data volumes get bigger, and that by itself is also not easy to do. When we architected the solution, we wanted to be as flexible as possible. Many analytic solutions are built on top of a rigid analytic schema, and therefore they constrain the type of questions that you can ask in order to get reasonable performance. With the customizations we see in data streams on the web, in retail and other places, we thought it was kind of a non-start to be too rigid in the schema. And then just as another kind of usability issue, we figured out very quickly that with big data, hard queries, and working over the web, that everything had to be asynchronous. Pretty much anything times out after 7 seconds on the web, any connection, and so everything has to be asynchronous, and that's a little bit harder to do when you're running big queries that can take a while, and answer sets that come back can also be large, and so we've solved that problem as well. So this is what we consider to be our requirements for doing analytics SaaS, and it really is kind of deep analytics without compromise, but software as a service, and there's some particular reasons why we feel like we can do that. The reason that we have been able to solve this problem and solve it cost effectively with many technical benefits is that we do have some very different core technology. Fundamentally, Quantivo stores and indexes data in our data center. We store and index it fundamentally very different than any database or any data storage system that's out there. And we call this the associative database, but what we do is we store all records that we get. We store it as patterns, and in a way that removes all the redundancy, but in a way that also does not lose any detail. It maintains all the dimensions in the data, and maintaining all the dimensions is particularly important when, in particular, maintaining the customer dimension. In other words, the session ID or the basket ID for a retail or a web transaction, and maintaining the customer ID, because if that's a dimension that you lose in your data, the customer dimension, that really limits the type of questions that you can ask. Some of the technical benefits of the technological approach that we have is that inherently, especially for these complicated data mining type queries that we answer those queries about 10 to 100 times faster than is possible with a standard off-the-shelf database. But very interestingly, and to the point of our flexibility and scalability in the data center, we use massively less I/O, 100 to 200 times less I/O, while still achieving those performance benefits. That allows us to build an infrastructure that answers queries, ad hoc queries, very fast, but also does it very efficiently with I/O, and therefore can scale and be manageable within a data center in a cost-effective way. And then because we store all the data, we can answer all SQL type queries if we choose to, but in particular we're also very well suited for what we call kind of data mining type queries. And then the last point there is that this is patented technology. We have 5 core patents on the way that we store and process the data. So it's very, very novel in the marketplace, the approach that we use to store the data. Now in the next segment, I'm actually going to walk through what the data structure looks like and how it's built, and that will really give some of the more technical people in the audience a much better understanding of the technical approach that we have.